Come join Melissa and her guests on the Chats from the Blog Cabin podcast. From North Carolina, this podcast will have you feeling like you've known these folks for years. Listen in as they chat about life, culture, current events, and more, all with a special Southern flair. Curl up with your favorite beverage and get ready to be entertained. Tune in now for a unique experience that's fun and insightful.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Chats from the Blog Cabin. You know, the show where I virtually invite people into the blog cabin to chat about life. And today we are chatting about traveling, which is, I've hit the travel bug, I think, a couple of years ago when I visited my daughter in Pasadena, and I absolutely love to travel now. I didn't used to. I used to be a homebody. So welcome to the show, Jackie. Before we get into talking about the historic traveler, tell us a little about yourself.
So I'm a serial pioneer, and I started by wanting to be one of the first women sports writers in America. And I was at the Detroit Free Press at 20, at the Associated Press, and on the front pages of the LA Times at 22, and at the Washington Post, and on Channel 11 here on Dodger Dugout by the time I was 22. And so I went on from that to have one of the largest sports special events cable TV PR agencies in the United States. And then realized that there was something else calling me. I wrote 2 books in personal growth. One was the best spiritual book of the year at the International New Age Trade Show. And I realized that my heart lay with making the world a better place. And so I wanted to serve those people who were really doing good work in the world. So I switched my company, Conscious Media Relations, rebranded, and then I started doing radio podcast tours. And I continue to do those for authors, leaders, and experts in personal growth, spirituality, health, and wellness. But, you know, as I was doing my professional life, I was traveling all over the world, and people didn't secretly know that I was a closet photographer of historic localities. And I was bit by the travel bug young, and we can talk a little bit more about how that happened. And so all of a sudden, I am now approaching the latter part of my life, and I'm thinking, what do I really want to do? What's really important to me? And sharing my photographs was really a big part of that. And so now I'm moving into the next phase of my life, that serial pioneer, creating a blog and a membership program unlike anything else that's out there. So it just evolves for me. I say I follow God's breadcrumbs, and, you know, a new opportunity, it presents itself, and I figure out, okay, I've been given this direction. What do I have to do to make it happen? And that's what I do.
I love that. I love the way you said you follow God's breadcrumbs, because I've never heard it like that, but I'm going to start using that now, because I love that, because it's like he leaves you on a path, and sometimes it's like Hansel and Gretel. When you veer off that path, you don't know where you're going to end up. But if you follow his little things that he lays in front of you, it's awesome. Did you ever think that you were actually going to do this, though? You said you had a love of travel since you were little.
So what I thought I would do is, you know, I would retire and digitize all my photographs and share them with my friends. But I was, you know, I had just sold a business that I, you know, really was eating up all my time. And I said, what do I really want to do next? And I actually had an intuitive reading with a girlfriend. And at the end of that reading, she says, I know what you're going to be doing next, a blog. And it was like the heavens opened up. All of a sudden, the vision for this came in. And what's unique about the Historic Traveler is it's not just a travel blog. It's not just a blog for people who love history. I'm going to give you all the books, novels, history books, historic mysteries that are going to make you feel as if you live there in that place. So the Historic Traveler is where we marry your travel to the books that make you feel as if you were part of that history. Bring it alive. And so every blog has a showcase of location, fabulous photos, and lots of them, by the way, and, you know, a real story about what's this. And I always try to find something that's different that people don't know about this location, and then book recommendations. So we put it all together in one, so that you can get a sense of it. And see, that's what I was doing when I wasn't traveling. I've been reading historic novels, history books, mysteries, and biographies to enhance my understanding of history, so that when I do travel, I think, that's where that happened, and that's where this king was born, and, you know, that's where he made this decree, or where she did this, or it all comes together. And I find that reading history is almost just as good, and in some ways even better, because it really gives you a perspective on personalities. Somebody else has already done the research on this person who lived, or on this a time period, what it was like to live in that. And so I'm absorbing all of that in an entertaining way, not just a straight history book, which can be great, but it's more fun to read it in a historic novel.
I love that. So how do you go about picking the novels? I mean, obviously you're very well read, and when you're traveling to places, how do you go back and say, okay, these are the novels? Because obviously you've had to have read the novels, correct?
Well, in some cases, yes. In some cases, no. I'm just going to go look for novels about that location. But one of the things that I did, I've got probably 1,000 books in my library, and I've probably read 3,000 historic novels over the years. But one of the things I did was I developed a directory of historic novels, mysteries, and history books by locality. So if you're a member of the Historic Traveler International, which is our membership community, you can go in. There are 7,500 books, and you can just search for a locality. You can search for a city, a country, and you can do other searches. You can go by author, you can go by series, for example. We put all the books in a particular series in there. So if you start one and you think, okay, so what's the next book in this series? You can see it'll say second book in the series. So it makes it really easy to find them. I spent 2 months basically building that directory. So that's a great resource that when you're a member of Historic Traveler International. So there's the Historic Traveler, which is the blog itself, and Historic Traveler International, which is a membership community.
I want to touch on something else that you just said. You said that whenever you travel, you like to point out the unique things about where you're at. And I love that, because that's what I like to. I like to go to the mom and pop shop. I don't like to go to the chain stuff. I want to go to get the actual essence of the places. So what unique things have you found on your travels?
Well, I'm always looking for what happened here a lot of times, like when a castle or a palace or even a home that's a historic home. I'm looking for the unique personalities and how they manifest. For example, I'm putting together a blog on Alaska. It's not done yet. And the most unique historic perspective was all these homes. They don't look like homes in the lower 50, 48, excuse me, but they are very distinctive. And so I'm going to put together a blog on Alaskan habitations. Sometimes the blog is committed to a place, and sometimes to a theme. Like I'm doing one on 3 of my favorite historic libraries around the world. I've done them on Paris's bridges. I'll do them on, I'm just trying to think some other things that are more themed like. Eventually there'll be, also do themed books. So there'll be one on light posts and children and lighthouses and, all different kind of unique things where I've got lots of them in that particular. Look for, different aspects of what I'm going to be highlighting, but you're going to get a little history in every blog so that you understand what you're looking at. And then the images really illustrate, but I don't just take pictures of big edifices. I get details, doorknobs or the sculptures in the building facade or the windows. So I'm going to give you more than just a big building and what it's about. I'm going to give you the nuances that make this particular building unique, as well as the story behind it and the people who live there.
Yeah, I feel like we're kindred spirits, because 2 years ago we went to Charleston, and Charleston's such a beautiful city, but I was more impressed with the trees and the cypress trees and the vines coming off of it. That was like my favorite picture, with the trees there. And so I can totally understand why you're like looking at the unique nuances of everything and seeing and the details, because yeah, you can always see a picture of a building in a book, but to actually experience it, you're looking and you're feeling and you're tasting. It's almost like your blog is coming to life while people are reading it, because you can see everything that you saw.
There's a picture that we use from Charleston that I took, And it's of a carriage driving by one of those fabulous mansions on the waterfront. There's just such an essence of a place that you can get. But I also do historic gardens, for example. I have a garden in Wellington that dates from before the turn of the century, and it was a location where the Maoris actually used this as a place to grow their foodstuffs before it became a public garden and with all kinds of other things in the more Victorian time. So, I mean, you're going to find all kinds of interesting aspects of a town. And sometimes I'll do a whole city or a whole village. And sometimes I'll just focus on a building. For example, one of the blogs that's coming up very shortly is the oldest continuing operating hospital in the world. This hospital dates from the medieval era, and it's still serving people.
Wow.
Not necessarily in the traditional sorts, but they have services for seniors that still operate out of the hospital foundation.
So what makes you decide when you're doing your blogs, whether the distinction between you're just going to feature a building, are you going to feature the whole town, or you're just going to feature just a little bits and pieces of the village? What makes you decide?
A lot, it depends on how much I have in the way of photography. So if I've got a lot of photographs on a particular place and it has an interesting history all to itself, then I'll feature that and then come back and do a blog on the cities at some later time, which gives me lots of different options. Because, for example, when I was in Asheville, I went to the Biltmore estate. And I got some phenomenal pictures of that. But at some other point, I'm going to do just a blog on Asheville.
Yeah, I mean, Asheville is such a quirky town. Some of its quirkiness has kind of gotten away a little bit because big businesses coming in, but it's a quirky mountain town, and it's I love the mountains of North Carolina. It's one of my favorite places to go.
There'll be a blog eventually on Black Mountain, which is absolutely one of the cutest little quirky towns in the Mountain States.
Yep. And the Blue Ridge Parkway is so beautiful just to ride it, not to even get out and go to any places, but just to ride it and take a picnic. I mean, that's one of the things I love to do with my husband. But when you started out, do you go to a place and think, oh, I'm going to write about this, I'm going to write about that? Or do you just let the photos guide you to what you're going to write about?
Yes, I do let the photos guide me, but it's more than that. I mean, I go to a town and I'm reading up on it first. I'll have definitely read a guidebook, but I might also have read a novel or some specific information about that location. So I have a pretty good plan, but I usually do a bus tour, either a city tour or a pop on, hop off, just to get the lay of the land. And then I start going back and really zeroing in on what's interesting. But I'm looking at it not just from a historic standpoint, what do I want to see and learn, but where are going to be the great pictures? For example, if you go to Budapest, one of the great places is what's called Fisherman's Bastion, which is this beautiful towered building towering way above the riverbank. And it looks out on that stunning Parliament building that you have seen in all the Viking river cruises. And so, I'm going up there because I want to see the Fisherman's Bastion, but I also know that's where to get some of the real breakthrough images of Budapest.
Do you focus on the food as well as places, or is it mostly just places and villages?
Generally don't do the food thing, but I do recommend, I have a little article that I recommend where I recommend a really good, if you're a history buff, a thing to do is go to historic restaurants, those that have been around a long time. And, sometimes they cost you a little bit more, but hey, the first place they made this, or, it's just more fun to get your history. If you're going to sit and have a meal, why not do it in the midst of something that's historically significant?
I see that. One of my favorite places in North Carolina is a winery, and it's also an inn. It's called the Country Squire. It's in Kenansville in Duplin County, and it's supposed to be haunted. Sometimes when you're eating dinner there, because it's a steakhouse, when you eat dinner there, sometimes a ghost will appear, like you'll see an apparition. It's really cool. And they have a tree growing in the middle of the of the restaurant, there's a tree that they just built around it. I mean, it's such a huge tree, but it's so beautiful. And they have a wine tasting as well. So it's just one of my favorite places to go. So I can see I feel like we're kindred spirits with the historical and stuff, because I like to go and see historical things and take pictures and visit things just out of the way things, even to go see a dam. I mean, really, I love pictures of just the nature around it.
Well, and I have a really cool little guidebook that I want to tell people about. So this would get them really started on, particularly on international travel. And it's called 20 International Cities That Make You Feel as if you're immersed in history, and the books that'll make you feel as if you live there. So you can grab that guide and let it resolve a bit. It might take a minute. And then you can have 20 different cities that you can put on your bucket list that will give you a good sense of that as well.
Are the cities inside the United States, or are they all over the world?
Different directory for the United States. So I can give that to you if you'd like it. All you do is add NA to the end of this one. You add NA to the end of this URL, you can get the US guide. That's got 18 cities in it, and it's North American, not just US, because I include Quebec, which is one of my favorite historic cities.
So what cities in the United States are on that list?
Oh my goodness. Well, Charleston, we talked about. I think Austin and San Antonio. Boston, of course. Washington, D.C. I just have to think about this. Seattle. I'm just kind of doing a tour. Chicago. Bunches of them. Baltimore, I think, is on there as well. Most of the Revolutionary War cities. So it gives you a real good survey. And what I do is I give you an idea of what it is that you should see in those cities. Give you, again, a little tiny bit of the history, and then what are the landmarks that you should observe or go to or see that are worthy of you for planning a trip.
I love that, because I'm a planner. I like to go and do things like spur of the moment and just like go to places, but I like to kind of pick out one or two unique things to look at. And like in Pasadena, I did not know there was literally a big giant fork in the road. I mean, there's a big giant fork that's just in the middle of an intersection in Pasadena, and my daughter didn't even know about it. So we kind of just went one day. It was like maybe 20 minutes from our house, and we found it. But it's so cool to see stuff like that, to see, and there's supposed to be hidden steps, but I'm like, I don't think I can walk the hidden steps in Pasadena too.
Pasadena has some great historical locations. Their Old Town really evokes the historic perspective of Pasadena. And then, there was also a cable car that went up from Altadena, Pasadena, all the way to the mountains, Mount Low, from the Victorian times. And I think some of that may still be there. I don't know if it burned down in the fire. I think it might have been preserved. But I mean, it had a real heyday, and then was obviously brought into modern times.
Yeah, that's one of the things I kick myself about when we went to Pittsburgh, is not doing that incline that went up the mountain and came back down. I kicked myself because we didn't do that, but we did everything else pretty much.
Lots of little funiculars around the world. I'm actually one of the benefits of joining our membership program is I have a magazine, 75 pages. So if you think you get stuff in the blog, wait till you see the magazine. And the first half of the magazine is about destinations. The second half of the magazine is about media, books, TV shows. Each one has a major interview with somebody that's significant. The first issue has the fellow who started the Lighthouse Preservation Society and saved most of the lighthouses in America. The author one is a woman who has 3 different historic series in 3 different eras. But there are all kinds of fun little articles in there. I'm going to do one eventually on funiculars in great places. Right now, there's an article on the 4 Roman arenas where you can still see performances.
Wow.
Yep. The lead story the cover story is a destination, is Taormina, Sicily, which is this great hilltop town in Sicily that's phenomenal. I mean, it dates from Roman times, so you have a great Roman amphitheater there. You can still see the elements of, and then this town that you can see medieval times, you can see elements of the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, all laid out there in a beautiful little setting that overlooks Mount Etna, where it's a puffing volcano. So it's just fabulous. I take places and do little spotlights. For example, I have every issue has a grand manner or a place of worship, a photo essay, featured articles with Q&A. So each time I'm going to highlight something different in each of the.
Now, when you started the Historic Traveler, did you think it was going to get as big as it is now? Did you think you were going to have a magazine? Did you think you were going to have a membership site? Did you think of all this stuff? Or did you think, I'm just going to blog away?
I started thinking, all right, I'm going to do this blog. And then I thought, but people could use this and they could use this. And so besides of the book directory, we added up also a TV directory where you can see historic TV dramas, all going all the way back to Roots.
I love that.
And them on broadcast streaming or some other methodology. But we have the world's largest list of historic hotels, one for Europe, for the rest of the world internationally, and one for the US. We have, of course, the magazine. We have travel discounts. And not only can you go in and you can determine, your own travel arrangements, but we have a travel agent that'll do it for you for nothing.
Oh,
I've hooked up with a travel company. And then we also have a community. So we meet once a month for a community meeting, and there's all kinds of cool stuff going on in the community on a daily basis. And then we also have a book club for people who really focus on the books, and a book swap in case you want to trade books, and a travel matching partnership. So if you are looking to find somebody to travel with, you can post, hey, I'm a female, I'm looking to go to Croatia in the spring. Who else might be interested in joining me? And so you can put together an individual or a group. And I'm going to be interviewing authors and experts. So that's going to be coming in the near future. And we also have a photo gallery of my images, I'm thrilled to say, that you can access. You don't have to be a member to access. And that will be beyond what I'm putting in the blog. So it's just not history. There'll be a lot of nature stuff there and other kinds of gorgeous, gorgeous pictures. And we have a little shop. You see our logo, my logo behind me, which is really fun with all the historic landmarks in the logo. So we've got a little shop with fun things like luggage tags and passport holders and all kinds of clothing, duffel bags, tote bags, things like that. And then I have a directory, and again, anybody can access, for Insight travel guides. I believe they are the best travel guides for anybody who loves history. They do a beautiful job of covering the history in any place. So we have a directory of over 200 of them on the website as well. So, as things came up, it just seemed like it made sense to add them and create them so that people can utilize them. So, you can come to the website and just register for the newsletter and blog updates. And that we're going to be telling you, okay, if you missed this blog, here are the ones to look forward to, and other kinds of cool, updated stuff. For example, there is going to be a place in Charleston where they're inviting the public to come and watch an archaeological dig.
Wow.
So that's going in the newsletter. So you want to sign up for the newsletter, no cost. If you want to join the membership program, it's only $19 a month.
Well, that's not bad at all.
We're not talking about breaking the bank. $19 a month. You get access to all of that. So, and we're going to be continuing to feed you great resources, new news, and you can meet people like yourself who love either historic novels or traveling. You don't have to be a traveler to love Historic Traveler. You can be an armchair reader and love Historic Traveler and take advantage of all the information. We have a book of the month on the homepage always. And I'm going to be telling you about what I'm reading so that you might be able to take advantage of that as well if you like what you hear.
Wow. I mean, I think you've thought of everything. I mean, honestly, I'm looking, I'm like, nobody else needs to even go anywhere else because you have everything all in one little place.
Well, that's the hope. That's the hope. I mean, it's a unique audience because this isn't for everybody. You have to like either history, travel, or historic novels really to come here. But if you do like those things, the general public may not match you. You may not find your peeps anywhere else. This is going to be where you're going to do that.
Now, I do have one question since I'm a parent. Is there a section for parents that maybe if they're going and they want to travel with their kids to some historical places, which one you can take your kids to?
I have not done that. I'm not a parent, so it's harder for me to know what those good things are. But our travel agent is going to know which of the places are right for you. And they do a lot of condos, very, very inexpensive week-long stays at condos that I should say condo resorts, essentially.
Uh-huh.
And that's great for people with kids. For example, for the next month, if you were to sign on as one of our members, you get entered into a drawing for an 8-day stay in Williamsburg, Virginia, the historic locality. And they're going to continue to do that with us quarterly. They're going to change the destination. If you come in as a member, you become eligible for it. It's a $2,000 vacation and it's in a resort condo. So it's a great place to bring your kids.
I love that. Now, how long is it before you said you were sat down, you had an intuitive reading with your friend and they told you you're going to start a blog. How long from that time did you actually start the blog? And then how long did it actually take off, the time frame?
It took me about 6 months to build everything. We are, really picking up speed at this point because I'm now out talking to other folks like yourself who so kindly are introducing it to their communities. Oh, but it was about a 6-month build. And I have a great webmaster, digital partner who every time I said, I'd like to do this, he'd find a way to do it. How do we display the photos in the photo gallery? And how do we offer this? And so we found a really fun way to put it all together.
So you have a team, you have a travel agent, you have a web designer. Who else is also on your team?
I have 2 gals in the Philippines who are like my daughters at this point. One of them is my social media manager and my graphic designer, and the other one is my community leader and Jill of all trades. I say, I need you to do research on this or help me fill out the book directory, or I gave her a direction to go find the historic hotels. So those 2 gals are really my go-tos.
I love that. Now, what made you decide to launch your membership site? What made you decide, okay, I'm going to take it to the next level. I've got to earn some income from it, probably, right? So you could fund your travels.
Well, and that's part of it. And I'm also looking for companies that are interested in having me come to their places and will comp me into those opportunities. And I'm looking for partners in the travel space. But what I actually have a lot of history with membership programs in between when I launched my conscious media relations and did the tours. Some people came to me and said, can you book me for speaking? And so I said, I don't want to do that, but I know where those speaking engagements are. So I built a company that I recently sold that basically provided speaker leads for people. And that was a membership program. And it worked very, very well for about 8-9 years. So this model was very familiar to me. And as I started building assets, it became apparent that we could adapt the resources that I wanted to bring to people into an inexpensive membership program.
Yeah, because it's very inexpensive. I was thinking it's going to be more than that, more than $19 a month. I mean, you can't even get Netflix now almost for $19 a month.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to combine the books with the travel? Because I think that's very important. Because I know a lot of people, I'm just going to throw Outlander out there. One of my friends, actually, her and her husband 2 years ago for their anniversary trip, went and toured all of Scotland and all the castles and everything that they were at. I mean, and she loved it, but she's a big Outlander fan, and that's the reason why they did that. So what made you decide to combine the novels with travel?
Being a lifelong historic novel reader and experiencing so much value from that. I mean, I have my own, some of my favorite authors going way back are James Michener, Leon Uris, Irving Stone, Gore Vidal. Those are the original masters. And I have actually a section in the magazine dedicated to bringing those old masters back. But that's where I started. And then I got to more modern stuff, Philippa Gregory, Ken Follett, all of these people who are, Rutherford, all of them are masters at the historic novel perspective. And so I've been reading those series forever. And then knowing them, and when I sat down to look at my photos and the destinations, I realized that my own knowledge of these places was dramatically enhanced by what I had read. And I'm thinking, well, if that's so much value to me to bring this place to life, well, then other people are going to experience that. If I can guide them on the books of what to read in that location, they're going to go thinking, wow, I understand what happened here. I understand what made the people do what they did. I understand who the heroes and the villains were, whether that's a class of people or an individual. It's those, and I will, when I list books, I will use some of the old standards. I will use books that are just out recently, some of the more modern writers like Fiona Davis and Marie Benedict and Kate Quinn. Those guys are contemporaries. And then I'm going to feature those as well. It depends on the subject, on the where I am, less than who I'm going to present. If the book applies to this area, then it's going to include it in the directory.
You talk about Fiona Davis. I discovered her a couple of years ago, and she has so much great historic content about New York that you just want to see it all when you go. And you can't fit it all in because you just want to see all that.
Got a new book. I was at the travel show and got a book from a woman who's written on all the historic buildings in Chicago. You don't think I'm going to delve into that book? I've got books on the chateaus of France, of which I've been to maybe 6, 7. I've got a book on Hampton Court Palace. Now, as I add blogs, those books are going to be key to the locations that we're talking about.
Yeah. I was thinking about when we went, when you were mentioning all the older writers with the Gore Vidal, and I was thinking about North and South and what was that? Blue, the Blue and the Gray as well. I was thinking about those, and I was thinking about how it made an impact. And I actually came home and watched these shows over when we went to the plantation house in South Carolina, Bloom Hill Plantation, where even Nicholas Sparks, when they shot The Notebook, that was where the guy came up. What was his name? Noah came up that little area right there, right in front of Boone Hill Plantation. He came up to meet Allie. So I think it's very important that when you see these actual buildings in movies, that's just like, oh wow, it just like sparks something to you. So do you think you might add maybe some movie locations in there as well?
Well, for example, I'll do one on Dubrovnik, and that's where they filmed a lot of Game of Thrones. And yes, I mean, for example, when I do Holyrood Palace, which is one of my favorite places in Scotland, in Edinburgh, so much of Mary Queen of Scots happened there. And so I'll be talking about the books, and the TV, films that have been done on Mary Queen of Scots. I mean, you can't go to Holyrood Palace without having your fill. I mean, this was the bedroom where her secretary was murdered. I mean, right there in front of your eyeballs. So, just the idea of being able to pinpoint locales based on what happened in those places, the books that really enliven that. Yes, I will be looking at films and TV shows. Certainly, for example, Rome, and there's so much that's happened in Rome with so many television shows that we can harken back to those.
Because the teacher in me, because I used to be a teacher, is thinking this would be great for like showing lessons as well, to pull up your blog and show them, hey, these are the actual pictures of where people are at, and here, and we're reading this novel right now, but here's the blog, and you can see all these pictures, instead of them just kind of going away on the internet is what I'm saying, just kind of mindlessly searching. Here's all in one place. And as a teacher, I think it would be a great resource. Have you ever thought about adding maybe a little bit of lesson plans for the teachers as well?
I haven't. I'm still just getting the grasp behind what I'm doing, but that's a really interesting idea. And there'll be a search bar. So if you're looking for a particular place, you can go look at it. One of the blogs that comes to mind in this conversation was Pompeii. That's coming. I think that's blog number 25. And, not only I'm going to give you not only the books, the historic novels to read, one of which is just really sensational, that a film was made about it. And then also I'm going to give you the actual history books that say, this is what, this gives you all the pictures and the details of what you'll see when you go to Pompeii. So, I'm looking to fill in the entire perspective. So I give you lots of different choices.
Now I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there a favorite place that you go to travel? Is there one favorite trip that stands out in your mind?
Well, a year and a half ago, I made a bucket list of all my favorite cities in Europe I hadn't gone to. Well, the first 2 weeks was on a bus trip in France. I've been to Paris, but I'd not been outside, and so I did 2 weeks in that, and then I went um, to Zagreb, Dubrovnik in Croatia, then to Vienna, Budapest, Prague, Lucerne, Interlaken, and Geneva in Switzerland. And then I took a train under the world's longest tunnel to Milan, Le Como, Bellagio, Verona, Genoa, and Pisa and Lucca. So that is my all-time favorite trip. It was just amazing.
It sounds amazing. I mean, you hit a lot of different places. And how do you not get overwhelmed when you go to these places?
How do I not get overwhelmed? It's kind of like taking one step ahead, one step at a time. What am I seeing today? And what am I photographing today? And then I come home every night, toss the bad photos out of my camera. Thank God we shoot digital these days. But I shoot also with my phone. And so I actually use 3 cameras, one indoor, one outdoor, and a cell phone, and pick from among all of them. And they're all different. And so for me, the fun is going through that, then reading a little at night, and then getting out and starting on the next day. And so I put the previous day behind me and start on a new fresh day.
I love that. Now, our time is almost up. Is there one last little nugget that either you've shared and you want to reshare so people don't forget, or something that we haven't shared yet that you want to share?
Well, I want to encourage people to take a couple of actions. 1, go to the website and sign up on the blog. 2, you're interested in becoming a member, take advantage of the membership program. And 3, if you want to take advantage of either the guides I was just telling you, go ahead and collect the one for international, which is just /guide, or the one for the US and Canada, which is guides NA. And so those are all ways to really start getting involved. We would love to have you come and join us, explore the site, come and explore. There's lots of things that you can do without becoming a member. Then if you have any questions or you really want to reach out, go ahead. There's also a video tour on the site, which goes over everything. So you can take advantage of all of that, but come play with us. And eventually, maybe I'm going to be leading my own trips. So you want to be part of our community.
Well, that sounds like so much fun. Now, I will ask, since COVID has hit, is there like restrictions on, do you actually put up, like when you travel, if there's some restrictions that may apply to some places, do you actually put that when you put in your blogs as well?
I haven't yet because I haven't really encountered that, but certainly as I want to advise people, I will include things like you can't go here.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to do this, you got to have a visa.
Yeah, for sure. So Jackie, thank you for coming on and for sharing the Stork Traveler. I cannot wait to dive in more to the blog. I just glanced at it earlier today, but I can't wait to dive into it some more. Thank you for coming on and for sharing your light and your love of travel, because now it makes me want to go plan a trip right now.
Well, listen, thank you so much for being such an enthusiast and for inviting me on this show.
All right, guys, I will put in the show notes everywhere you can find Jackie, as well as where you can grab the guides. She also has a YouTube and a TikTok now. She just started that up. So I would definitely go follow her there. And as always, guys, keep chatting and bye.